All right, Aaron, this is mainly for you, but we were talking during the break, and I mentioned to everyone that coming in here, what I literally want to have happen is I want each student to figure out what templating engine they want to use. All right, so I'm being very liberal with that. All right, so what we're going to do right now is under our node modules, not under our node module, under our main folder right here, Node.js/MySQL/REST/API, right there, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a new folder, all right, that we're going to call public. All right. Then underneath our public folder, remember public is typically for our static files, right? So under that public folder, we're going to come in and we're going to add another folder. And under that public folder, we'll make a folder called CSS and hit enter. I don't know what happened there, but somehow it's screwed up. So let me try it again. In fact, I've shown you this before. I don't particularly like creating folders in here because I usually screw it up like I just did. So I usually go back to here and I right mouse. You don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to right mouse click, choose folder, public.
Hey, I think that happened to you before. It's. I don't think anything went wrong. It's just a weird way of displaying it. Since
It might be.
The only thing.
Yeah. So inside of public, I'm going to make another folder called CSS. And inside of CSS, I'm going to make a new file that is called styles.css. So right now under public, I have a folder called CSS. And under that folder that's called CSS, I have a file called styles.css. Is everybody with me? All right. Then, although I don't think we're going to put any JavaScript on the client side in here, I'm going to again right mouse click, choose new folder, and put in a JS folder that right now will remain empty. All right. And then finally, I'm going to come in and right mouse click, and I'm going to choose new text document. And just because I want to call it what it is, I called mine add author form.html. So this right now is what I have underneath my public folder. So under public, which is under Node, MySQL, etc., I have two folders. One folder is named CSS, and inside of the CSS folder, there is the styles.css file. Then I have a JS folder, which is empty. Then I have my add author form.html. Is everybody cool with what I just did? All right, I can't make these any bigger, so you know.
It's all lowercase.
For the name of the file here?
Yeah, add author form.
No, I made the A in author and the F in form uppercase.
Okay.
It shouldn't matter.
And it's all singular at author.
Yes, because I'm going to only be adding one author in here.
Okay.
Now, I'm switching back to Visual Studio Code. I'm back in here and I'm in public and I'm in my add author. Now, don't do this. I could just come in and do this. We've talked about this before. I can do that. There is nothing wrong with doing that. But since we already have Bootstrap, let's just go and find the Bootstrap template. All right. So I'm going to go out to getbootstrap.com. And underneath this, I'm going to go to the Get Started. And underneath that, I'm going to go down until I find the template, starter template, about halfway down. And I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. And after I copy it to the clipboard, I'm going to copy that right into here. All right. I remember this thing that's commented out here, this option 2. Since it's commented out, I'm just going to remove it. It's code bloat. There's no reason to have that in there. So that's why I'm removing it. So this is now what I have. Now, maybe what we will do is maybe I will show you this, and maybe I actually will give you the next week or tomorrow or whatever, we'll come in and we will use a templating engine because I don't want you to be confused. Right, so we'll see tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Let me word wrap this. All right. First thing I want to do is I don't want that to be the title. So I'm going to change that to add new author. That's going to be my title. And my H1, I'm just going to change that to add a new author below. If you don't like what I'm typing in, type in whatever you'd like. It really and truly isn't going to matter. All right? So let's see, did that. Now, you may or may not remember this. First of all, good time to do a file save on this file. All right? But I'm going to jump back into server.js. And remember we put this comment up here that said use middleware? Remember that? All right. Well, there's another bit of middleware that we want to add in here. Let me put it in first. Don't worry about typing it. I'm not going anywhere. So app.use express.static might have to be a dot in there. I'm not sure because I screwed up my own typing here. I think that's going to be correct. We're going to find out in just a second. Okay. Now, what is this? Well, you can start typing this in, but it says that any static assets I have will be in the public folder. Does that make sense? Static assets typically are considered to be like CSS files, images, all right, etc. HTML files. HTML files are static. They don't typically change. All right. The order in which you put those two lines, 27 and 28, doesn't matter. All right. All right. Everybody cool with this? Again, I'm going to do a file save, and I'm going to jump back into my add author form thing. Now, I'm going to go underneath this H1 tag, and I'm going to hit enter twice. I went under the H1 tag, and I just hit enter twice. Why? Why? Because Jeff's going back to Bootstrap land, and I'm going here to Forms, and I'm going to click Overview. And I'm going to grab all that code for this form. Look on the screen. Do you agree? Anything wrong with using this form and changing email address to first name, changing password to last name? Should work fine, right? And we don't need that checkbox in there. So we'll get rid of it in just a minute. And we don't need this, we'll never share your email with anyone else either. So since that's up here, I'm going to click the copy button. And now where I just came in here, right there, I'm going to paste it in. All right. So what do I want to get rid of? Well, first, I don't need this thing that says we'll never share your information with anyone else. So I'm getting rid of that. Everybody see that? I'm getting rid of that. So that's gone. Second thing, label for example input email. Okay. This is going to be first_name. This is going to just, remember this is just a label. This will say first name. You can put a colon there if you want to. You don't have to. All right. And this, the ID will also be first_name. Now is the most important part of this semester because we've never done this before. That is, we want to say name equals first name. That is how Node will allow us to programmatically manipulate what we're about to do. All right. Now, you don't have to do this, but just so everybody can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to put each one of these things, you don't have to do this, on its own line. All right. So I've got now, and again, do I want type equal email? No. Don't I want the type to be text because it's a text field? Would everybody agree with that? All right. And this thing here with described by, I'm going to call this first name help. I don't even know what the heck that means. I don't even know if we need that, but I'm just going to call it first name help. So I think I've changed everything that's in here. I think. Why am I telling you that? Look on the screen, please. I don't want to make those changes again in here. I don't want to make those changes. So I'm going to grab everything I just did in here from this div on down. So the whole div, come on. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to replace the div below it that's got the password or whatever that is. I'm going to replace that, and I don't need this checkbox. So I'm going to go all the way down to the button if you look on the screen. And I'm going to replace that with this. But now I want to change this to last name. I want to change the label itself to last name. I want to change the name and the ID to last name. And I'm going to change the aria described by to last name. Everybody understand what I just did? Now, everybody agree this is an HTML file? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know why I couldn't right mouse click here and choose open with live server to just take a little look at it. And there it is. Now, you might look at it and go, it's ugly, it needs padding, it needs margin, it's way too long, etc. Okay? Like I said, you may think all that stuff, then fine, fix it. That's why I had you do the bootstrap exercise. For example, this is set to width of 100% by default. All right? I should be able to come in here. I think I could at least. So let's see, text form control ID, class equal. What if I came in here and said W-50? I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, so I wouldn't type it in if I were you. So form control, let's try this one too, W-50, and see if that works. All right. See how I cut it down? I could probably cut it down to 25 and then put margin and padding. I can center that. It's your project. Part of what you're going to be graded on in here is how professional it looks. Does that make sense? All right. So again, you can make any changes you want. Add margin, add padding, change what it says here, however you want to do it. There's ways of very easily doing this if you don't want, let's say you don't want labels. You want a placeholder. Then use a placeholder. All I'm going to ask is when you do this, does it make sense to you? You're going to have 3 forms. One to add a new author, one to add a new title, one to add a new publisher. Does that make sense? Be consistent with the way that you set these things up. All right, that's what I'm asking more than anything else. Hopefully this project and the one that follows are going to be things that you want to put into your portfolio. All right, and these are the things you're going to be judged on by a future employer. All right, okay, enough of the sermon. All right, so let's go back to here. Yep, that's done. So we're up to the last page right now. All right, another thing that I would add in here, nobody's mentioned this, but I would add this, first name and last name. Remember, do you remember when we created the database? Do you remember, I'm asking you this, do you remember that we put in not null, meaning that we wouldn't allow blanks in there? So I would come in here and at the end, put in required. Now that's a minimum amount of validation, but by putting in that word required twice, look on the screen, please. See that? And if I put in something here and I don't put in something there, same thing. Now, I'm going to actually add a little bit more code than that. What happens? I'm asking you the question because I don't know. I'm going to come in here, 5 spaces, 5 spaces. It took it. So we're going to run the trim function on it later. All right. But again, if somebody comes in here and puts this in, 123, 345, boom, that accepted. Look up in the query string. We could, if we wanted to, check for alpha only. There's a lot of ways we can do this. All right, but if you know this, people from other countries, like what is that, Finland or whatever it is, they've got fjord, and they've got like the 2 dots above their name, etc. What do you do with stuff like that? I don't want this class to become something like that where we do one project that would work all over the world. I'd rather have us do 6 projects that work in this country. All right. Okay. Now, one more thing that we have to do in our form here. This is important. All right, because right now we got this form, and the reason that I open it up in live server is the system basically has no way of equating that with what we're trying to do. So we're going to do that right now. I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to close that and come into here. Do you remember this thing? Remember how it has an action attribute and a method? All right, we're going to add those right now. And we're going to say, let's see, action equal slash, what did we call that? Did we just call that author for a single author? Might have been better to call that author create, but it's fine. You can change it if you want to. We should be able to leave it here without any kind of problem. So we're telling it to go there. And the method, method equal post. Now, it should not matter. It should not matter whether the word post is in uppercase or lowercase. But by convention, I don't know why everybody puts it in uppercase. But it's case insensitive, so it doesn't matter. So let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Did that. All right, let's go back for a second to our server.js, and we're going to add one more app use. You may or may not remember this, but one of the things that I told you earlier is we included body parser, and I said it was so that we could parse the form elements. So in other words, instead of looking at every form element together as one big unit, we can look at the individual pieces. All right, so we're going to put another app.use in here. And we put in this body parser dot URL encoded extended false. We've looked at this a little bit before. Now, you notice how it's giving me the line through body parser? Yours may or may not do that to you. If it does, it's fine. Body parser itself has been deprecated. There's nothing wrong with still using it. But if I put my mouse over it, it'll say that it's been deprecated. All right. So there's ways around that. I don't care about that right now. Okay. Now, if you want more than what I just mentioned to you, you don't have to go out here, but I wanted to show you this. That is, I'm going to open up a new browser window. I typed in, what is the meaning of this? I said, what is the meaning of, and then I typed in the whole line that we just put in, body, the whole thing. All right. And this was a so-so explanation, but this one, usually the checked one is the one that's more thorough. All right. So it says there, body parser is middleware. Notice, it says returns middleware that only parses JSON and only looks at the requests that come from the content type header that matches this option. All right, it says it accepts any Unicode character encoding, etc. The bottom line is when you read through here in English, what it's saying is it's allowing us to parse what we're putting into that form. In this case, that's what it's doing. All right. So kind of exciting. You may or may not agree with it, but I want you to go back to server.js because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time, we're going to write our first post route. All right. Now, some people put an app.get, and if there's a matching post, they put it right underneath it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Some people put all their app.gets first, and then their app.posts. All I'm asking is that you establish your own pattern for doing this, and you stick to it. That's all. Just so you know, I don't know if you agree with this, it's not huge, but our app.js is getting big. Tomorrow we're going to break this app.js file. We're going to take all these routes that we're putting in right now, we're going to put them into 3 different files. All right, don't worry about that right now. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go down right before my app.listen, and I'm going, whoops, not there. And I'm going to put in a comment that says, add new author post route. Why? Because that's what it is. All right, that's what we're about to do. Now, there's not a lot, probably about 15 lines that we have to type in, something like that. I can tell you exactly, 219, about 20 lines. When we get done with that, we're done for the day. And ideally, at least, what we're going to be able to do is I'd like you, if it works, to try to put yourself in there as an author. And then after you do that, if it works and you get the OK message, then go back into either MySQL Workbench or into PHPMyAdmin, run the select star from authors, and make sure indeed you're in there. Does all that make sense? Because if that's the case, what we've been able to do today is it's actually pretty significant. We were able to go and query the database and grab every record from a table. We were able to query the database, and we were able to grab a single record from the table. And now, hopefully, we're going to be able to not query the database, but insert a new record into the database. So we've got the CRUD, not CRUD, not the UD, but the C and the R. So we'll worry about the other stuff in a little bit. But we'll have the create done if we get this to work. And we'll have the read, which is basically a select. All right? Does all that make sense? Working with APIs like this, it can be a lot of things, but more than anything else, it's a lot of CRUD work. That's not meant to be funny. All right, but it's a lot of being able to add things, whatever the thing is, remove things, modify things, and delete things. And that's what we're getting to in here. All right? Okay, so let's continue on then. All right, so app.post, not get, post. Now again, we can call this whatever we want in here. I could just call it author again, and that's totally fine. But I decided, good, bad, or indifferent, to call it author create, because that's what we're doing. Again, I know I keep harping on a lot of the same stuff, but when you start writing these, you're doing a project on your own after we get through this. And that's going to be most of the last 9 weeks in here. All right, we're going to build one together, and you can base it off of that one. We're going to try, at least, we're going to be trying to go in and build like a whole e-commerce site. But whatever I'm selling, I don't want you to sell it. I want it to be your own stuff. And it may not be e-commerce that you do, etc. But again, I'm trying to enforce good habits on you. And if not good habits, at least consistent habits. All right, I know I've told you this before, but I had a teacher years ago who told me, I'd rather have you have a bad coding standard that I don't like, that you were consistent with, than no coding standard whatsoever, where you just threw stuff in all over the place. He said, at least with a bad coding standard, he said, first, I can tell you that it's bad, and you can or cannot change it. And second, I can at least be able to debug your program because I know how you do things and where you put things. All right, so let's put in this create route. As always, we've got our request and our response and our fat arrow right here. Moving it up. All right. Now, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to grab from the body, and the body basically is the form. We want to be able to grab the first name. We want to be able to grab the last name. We don't worry about putting in an ID. Remember, that's an auto increment field. That better be put in for us. All right, otherwise something's really hosed. So I'm going to create two variables here. Const first name, and I'm going to set that equal to req request.body dot first name. See that the IntelliSense even picked that up. Const last name equal request.body dot last name. All right, so I've got those two things. All right, then as we have been doing, I'm going to do a let query string equal, because this is going to be our insert statement. Does that make sense? Now, one thing I have not been able to figure out, and so I got word wrap on, so it will wrap, but I think you have to type this as one line. It's possible you can break it by using like a backslash at the end of a line or whatever. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to keep typing. It will word wrap. You all know now, right, that you can click view on your menu and go down to word wrap if you want to turn on your own word wrap. All right. I mean, I've said that several times. So in the query string, this is what I'm going to put. Insert into authors. Does this look familiar? We've done queries like this. That's why I had you go through and do those MySQL queries. So their names in the database are first name and last name. All right, so we've got those. Oops, not there. First name and last name. And if you remember, then we say values. Then in parentheses, we have to put in what we're putting in. Now, we don't know what those are. Would you agree with that? If you run this program and you put in 4 different authors, they'll have potentially four different first names and four different last names. So we use our old friend, the question mark. All right, semicolon. Now, just in case somebody tries putting in the blank spaces, so just in case, I'm going to account for that. And I don't care if you put in blank spaces for the first name, or you put blank spaces in for the last name, or you did both. And I'm talking about somebody who attempts to actually go and literally just put in blank spaces for the entry. So rather than making 2 checks, I made 1 combined check, is what I'm telling you. So I said here, if first name equal nothing, or last name equal nothing. All right, and again, you can use single quotes there, you can use double quotes there. It does not matter. All right, but one thing up here is I'm checking it right here, correct? But wouldn't it be nice to first come in here and do a dot trim? I think it'll take that. I didn't get that far with that this morning, but I think it'll take that. If it doesn't, we're going to know real quick, and then we'll just remove that. But I think I don't know why it wouldn't take that. So if either one of these are the case, all right, I'm going to show you yet another way. So I'm going to say this, console.log failed to insert new user. In fact, let's put backticks in here because then we can just put the error in here too. So I'm going to put a backtick there. So failed to insert new user, and then I will just add to that the actual error. And my backtick, oh, I already did. All right. And then I'll say res.send status, because I want you to be aware that you can do this in a lot of different ways. So I showed it to you before where I chained those two together. Now we're just doing it this way, and I'll put in a return. We've got literally, I think, 6 or 7 more lines, and we're finished. Put a comment in here. You don't have to, but how about check for empty first name or last name. Okay. So if I get down to here, would you all agree? We put something in the first name field. We put something in the last name field. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Now, something could still be screwed up. Don't ask me why. Maybe the database is down for maintenance. I don't know. But it's still possible. Now we're going to try to do the insert. But it is still possible that this could fail. Just so you know. It shouldn't, because most places have their database up and running, and it runs literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right. So down here after the if, I'm going to put in kind of what we did before. So get connection dot query. We're going to put in our query string. We know that we have the first name and we have the last name. And again, it's possible that this comes back with one of 3 things: an error, the results, and the individual fields. Again, it's going to word wrap in just a minute, I think. No, it didn't. What do you know? So I'm going to do my if to check for it not working, and I'm going to do it. If that doesn't happen, then I'm just going to, it worked. All right. So put a semicolon here. Try to be consistent even with that. Now, you may go to work for a company if you become a web developer. We don't use semicolons here. Then don't use them. But to me, what's bad is to use them sometimes and not use them all the time. To me, it looks like you don't care enough. Because I watch tons of videos online, and I'd say 50% of the people that I watch use them, and 50% of the people don't. All right, the old saying, the only thing consistent about this is that it's inconsistent. That kind of an idea. All right, so under the get connection here, again, I'm going to say if there's an error, and basically, I'm going to do the same thing as here. All right. In fact, really, I'm not going to change it, but if you look up on the screen for a second here, please. Really, if either of these were empty, I could have just done a return right there. That might have actually been cleaner. See what I mean? Because there's nothing to do. All right. But I'm going to leave it the way it is. It should work okay. All right. Otherwise, if I get down to here, guess what? I did the insert and it worked. So I'm just going to do a console.log, and I'm going to say in here, I'm going to use backticks, and I'm going to say inserted a new user with ID, and I'm hoping I put this in correctly. Not incorrect, but I put it there correctly. I believe it's called insert ID. And look at, because it's got weird caseness in it. All right. just like that. So let me save this. If you're still typing, I'll come right back to it, but I want to see if I've screwed up at all. All right, so I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to put in, first of all, did my server restart, and is it still running? That's good. So I'm going to come in here and put in, I think we called it author_create. Okay, maybe I didn't. Let's look.
Add on form.
No, we'll get it in just a second. It is author create. Is that what I put? Well, that ain't good, because it's saying that it cannot get author create. So I did put it in there correctly. Did I get an error in here? No. All right. So something is wrong, and I've got to debug it to see if I can figure out why. Cannot get author create. 444 author create. That's all correct. Don't need this. This is where I started to write it out from on my own, and I would be just like put it in there a piece at a time. So post. There should be a slash here. See this? That may have been what the problem is. I'm not saying it was, but you do need a slash author create. So now, of course not. That would have been way too easy, right? Well, it doesn't like something. So my responsibility by the end of the day, or by the time class starts tomorrow, is to fix that error. I think that's the only error we've got in here so far, I believe.
I got an error that says body is not defined.
All right, we'll take a look at that in just a second. But before we do, when we start tomorrow, we're going to do a bunch of things. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add things similar to what we just did, but rather than having an author create, and authors, we're going to have a title create, and a titles. And then we're going to go in and do the same thing with publishers. Does that make sense? Now, there's two ways of doing this, just so you know. You literally could take your whole file and copy it over from one to the other and change everything that's entitled to, an author to title, but there's different field names. You're going to have to do that. If that's easier for you, you can do it that way. If you're like, no, that seems like, then you will start from scratch. When I do it tomorrow, I'm going to start from scratch. All right. Then when we get done with that, so hopefully we'll have that working and we'll be able to do that. So we'll have the CR part done for each one of these. All right. And then after we do that, I guess we'll have to start talking about where we go next. I mean, we got to put in the UD, and really the UD stuff isn't hard because it's a delete statement. We could actually put that in right now. All right. But I don't want to put that in until we've got the create part to work. So we'll try to do both the update and the delete tomorrow as well. So we'll have the entire CRUD stuff done. All right. Then if I have time, because I don't know if I will tonight or not, we'll see where we are tomorrow at that point. But then over the weekend, I will go and literally, because we're just going to have a whole bunch of files. So in here, I'm going to pull that stuff out of public. So I will actually go and probably use, I don't know, I'll probably use handlebars because I've got a template for that already, and do that. Now, I'm just telling you that when we do this, this is going to be an unbelievably generic looking website. So your responsibility is, it's like you were been hired as a web developer / designer. So you will have to take pages. In other words, I don't believe, maybe I'm wrong. I don't believe that's going to look nice to an end user. You can take that and make it a bootstrap table. You can take it and do something else with it. My hope is everybody does something different. You can add colors to this, all right, etc. So there's a lot of different stuff that you can potentially do, and that's what I'm looking for you to do. All right, so probably what we'll do is if we finish tomorrow, great, and if we don't, then we'll finish it up on Monday. All right, Tuesday for sure will be lab for the entire period. Now, we'll have to see how it works with everything. I may have to lecture Wednesday and or Thursday, but I will tape it, you know, etc., and it'll all be out there. Plus, if it works the way it seems like it's going to work, then probably I will lecture Wednesday and Thursday, and Friday will probably be a lab. So if you're missing already Wednesday and Thursday, if you're not feeling well on Friday and you don't come in, I will understand. That's why. You know, you can send me an email and let me know. Like Aaron sent me an email today, you know, and Gabriel sent me an email that Sunday before your whole adventure started. So, anybody have any questions? Does what we're doing make sense? I mean, it is different because we've been always approaching this from the side of the end user. Yeah, you created websites, but you had the end user in mind. You didn't worry about if they put in a form, what happened to that form. That's what we're thinking about now. All right. And again, what my hope is, I'm really and truly hoping for this that when we get to about, I don't know, week what, let's say it's week 12. All right. That by then we're doing a project where I'm working with you either 1 or 2 days a week max. And the other 3 days, you're still expected to be here, but you're working on your variation of the project. All right. Because in lieu of a final exam, that's what you're doing in here. All right. That's what I had for today. So like I said, I'll fix this for tomorrow. I'll look through my notes.
I think I found something that might help you.
Okay.
It says it can't get also create. That's because we're setting up as a post. Do you think that's why? And I don't see where we're connecting that with the HTML we created.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sure I'm missing something. I would be willing to bet you. This is one set of notes. Unfortunately, I left the other set of notes at home. No, I put them up here, and then I shut the computer, but I probably left them on the table and then shut the computer. We'll get it working by tomorrow. I'm not worried about that. That's literally the least of my worries. So, all right, if there's no other questions, then I mean, you take a break, and you've got time now until 3. Well, you got a little less than an hour, like 50 minutes or so. That if you want to keep working on the Alfano site, that you can.